All right, we're live. Hey there, my name is Stacia Kennedy, and this is Eric B. We're both with Real Estate Funnel Systems.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
What's up, everybody?
I want to make sure we can hear.
Test
Make
that
sure to
sound
comment below, hashtag live if you're watching live, hashtag replay if you're watching the replay. And in this video, we're going to talk about virtual real estate teams. We've been both working with real estate teams virtually now for a few years. Hey, Giselle, welcome.
Giselle, what's up?
What's up, guys? So again, hashtag live, hashtag replay. We're excited to have you here. Give us some hearts and likes. Do you guys work from home, or is this something you know, like just transitioning? I've been thinking a lot about this transition that a lot of people aren't used to working from home, or maybe this has just always been, you know, the norm has always been to, you know, have an office and do all that stuff. So let us know where you guys are at, if this is something new that you need to like pivot yourself, or if you have any questions for us about building a virtual team as well.
Yeah, this is, you know, Stacia brings up a really good point. For a lot of people, this is kind of, this virtual moment is like almost kind of a freak out, and you can't, you know, see people at the water cooler or at the coffee machine, and just the flow is different. But I'll tell you that I've been working in this environment for almost 10 years, you know, virtually or some capacity of that. You know, I've oftentimes had an office where, you know, in an office environment, but I've always been like really dedicated to my home office, really dedicated to not having to go to an office. If I needed to work from home, I've always allowed myself that ability. So now I've been full-time at home for a couple of years, and so I've worked out all the kinks and got the workflow going. And so if you ever need any suggestions, help, tips, tricks on that topic, just raise your hand. Stacia and I are both very, very well versed in the home office arena and virtual setting. But so today, you know, as strategy changes in these different environments, and as we're kind of reorganizing, I would imagine a lot of us are really looking at our cash flow, our expenses, what, you know, where are we spending their time and our resources right now, because everything's really critical, as we all know. So the topic of virtual assistants is very fitting to me. You know, if you are needing to expand your effort right now, so there's some of us see this as a moment of growth, a moment to expand, to really, you know, take a part of the market share that you may have not had before. So that's a thought process. Other thought process, it might be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to have to learn how to work my business without this key player that I've had for a long time, because you know, in this moment of, you know, call it uncertainty, you know, upcoming recession, you know, whatever we're in right now, it's hard to even define it. But people are having to make really hard decisions. And maybe that decision is that you're going to have to figure out how to do more with less. So if you're in a position where you're going to have to figure out how to do more with less, then virtual assistance and understanding how to work with VAs is going to be a huge component to that answer. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm going to share a little bit of, you know, I've been working with VAs for a long time, but even everything, we're always learning, right? First and foremost, we are always learning, we're always doing. So therefore we're always learning and we're always adjusting, and that's never stopped for me personally. So I'm going to share kind of, you know, the broad scope of what we've learned working with VAs. What are some of the top questions that we get asked all the time about VAs, but also from my perspective, what has been the latest learning that I have gone through in the latest evolution, if you will, of how we're working with VAs, because we have made a pretty significant shift just recently on this topic. So I'm going to share a little bit about that. So yeah, anything else to add to this, Stacia?
Also, maybe what do they do? What do you have them do? What you know, positions? There's different parts of building the team virtually as well too. So let's talk about that too.
Yeah, we'll cover exactly that. I'll cover how we have worked with VAs, and keep in mind, like I don't ever want anybody to think that what I say is the be all end all. I'm just sharing my examples of how I've used it. There's a lot of different ways, and I'm sure some of you guys have creative ways that you're working with VAs that I'm not going to be talking about. And if that's the case, share. I would love to put your comments in below. I would love to hear how you're using VAs. And kind of the flip of that is if you get some value out of this, if there's something that we share that's really impactful to you and your business, man, make a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And if there's something that we can elaborate on, if we kind of touched on something that you want to go a little bit further deeper into, then let us know. So so a lot of us, the first time that I kind of like went through this I need a VA moment was when that feeling of like, how am I going to get this done? Because it's outside of my skill set. Or I remember the first time, at my first go as an entrepreneur, that first time I felt like that was when the first task of go make your logo. I remember thinking like, this is simple. This is really simple. Don't overthink this. I can do this. And then a week would go by and I didn't do it. And then, then whatever else would go by and I wouldn't create a logo. And then I realized like, man, I'm just avoiding creating a simple logo and I'm not doing it. Or every effort that I did try was just like so elementary that there was no way that it could be considered. And I remember just kind of like sitting back and being like, how do people do this? Like, what do we do? What's the solution? And, it kind of hit me like a rock, like, oh, obviously you hire somebody to go do this. Oh, there's VAs that actually specialize in graphic design. Oh, okay. So I remember those aha moments where it was like, it dawned on me and I found websites like Fiverr. If you haven't used Fiverr yet, I feel like almost everybody's using Fiverr these days. But if you haven't, no harm, no foul. If you haven't,
it used to be $5 for everything. Now it's
that's how it started. Man, they got popular quick with that $5 offer. But when it first started, like, I don't know how long ago, like 10 years ago or so, when we first started using it, a long time ago, it was Fiverr. In the why it was like the dollar store where everything's supposed to be $1. The Fiverr, was a VA or resource center where everything was $5. So you go there to get something done for $5. And so it was always kind of funny to go in there and say, what could I get done for $5? And some of the most random weird things would pop up. And so in our early stages, when we were first growing our first business, after we had this aha moment that I just kind of described about the level of resources that are at our fingertips, in our office, we set a $20 per week Fiverr budget. And the reason why we set a $5 or it was a $20 per week Fiverr budget was because we found like whenever we went in there with a little budget, not a big budget, but with a little budget, we would always find things that people would do that would like push us forward that we weren't considering. Like, it's kind of like those little tasks that are like outside of your radar that you don't know how to do. So you just like, until it becomes critical, I'm just not going to do it. Right. And that was kind of like the logo thing for me. Until it gets critical, I'm just going to push it aside or whatever else. And so that might be branding. That might be your website. That might be copywriting. That might be sales letters. That might be script. Anyways, let me digress, right? There's so many different things. So we would challenge ourselves to be resourceful and take a small budget and go into Fiverr and identify things that would just nudge us forward in any one direction that we were avoiding. And man, that was so liberating. Having that budget and just getting used to strengthening that muscle of hiring other people and VAs. So that's how we dabbled into it. So if you ever want to kind of put your toe into the water of virtual assistants and outsourcing that way, Fiverr is an excellent place to do that. Whether you want to refresh on your website or a graphic design work or anything like this, Fiverr is a great place. So now the other place that is a little bit more serious, that's a little bit more established, is Upwork. So Upwork is a great resource. If you haven't used it, again, kind of like Fiverr, I feel like a lot of people are using or have heard of Upwork. So I'm not thinking that I'm explaining anything new here. Just another resource to keep in mind if it has fallen off the top of mind. And Upwork is it's a professional setting where you can go in there and chop or search in a job title or something that you need done, and you'll have a bunch of resources and people that will then bid on that job, and there's reviews there and everything else. So we oftentimes use Upwork for more of that one-off type of VA task. The one-off task or things like that, we'll use Upwork, if not Fiverr. Okay, so those are the two resources that I would love to share with you on a very kind of elementary or 101 level. 101 level, that's what I would call that. So, you know, just to get your foot wet in that arena. So really, really good resources to use. So what tasks do we use? You know, like, so where are we finding the most progress with our VAs? And it's a good answer. I will just keep in mind, it is different for everybody. Okay. This is a spot where I usually talk about, like, hey, what's your strength? What's your weakness? Where are you good? Where are you efficient? What do you like doing? What do you not like doing? Those questions are all relevant. So make sure you do a really good self-assessment, you know, and understand like where your strength zones are and where your weaknesses are, so that you can start backfilling your weaknesses. Oftentimes it's pretty obvious, but it's a really healthy exercise to go through. So I would highly recommend doing that to just identify what, where is that spot that you need, you know, the most help or task. So, so that I'm saying that just to remind everybody, it is unique. Okay. Now for us, I have the VA category, or how I look at the tasks and things like this is oftentimes like, is it a simple one-off type of task? I take this approach. If it's more of a established process that needs to be happening consistently, I take a different approach. Okay, so just keep that in mind. The one-off tasks are really easy to go fishing into, like I said, Fiverr or Upwork. Just go fishing for that one-off task. Really, really good. Highly recommend it. Video edits, yeah, voiceovers, all that stuff. Intros, things like this that can make an impact. Where we use that stuff. Now, where we use it on the other side of like more of a process, you know, integrating it into our business system, if you will. That's kind of another topic. And when we use that, for right now, what we use a lot of that type of VA work is for data scraping and data cleansing. So organizing our data and making sure that all of the removals are done, all of the skips are skip traced, and the accuracy, the formatting of our data. A lot of like the tedious work of managing data on a data set. So think of this as a marketer. When we're marketing to a list of prospects, this is the data that I'm talking about. So when we pull the data from PropStream, as an example, you know, the absentees and whatever else, the bankruptcies, all those lists, we pull them from PropStream, then we will then skip trace them, and then we bounce them up against, you know, we have a VA work through it, organize it, make sure that it's all clean, the data is all organized appropriately, that if there's any incomplete data, that it either gets completed or pulled off of the list. So we do all that. We have a VA do all of that, and then go through and a lot of just formatting, upload it back up into the system, and then get that process started. So that is something that we use a VA on a regular basis to do. So that's like consistent, ongoing type of work. So we have a very detailed scope of work, or SOP, standard operating procedure, for the VA. And that's probably the biggest thing that I can offer as a success tip, if you will, or, you know, principle for the VAs, is you got to have a scope of work, or, you know, like a really detailed process of what they're going to do. Now, some people call it SOP. I call it scope of work. SOP, scope of work, kind of same thing in my world. It's just a really detailed process of exactly step by step what you need that VA to do. this is the biggest failure spot that I see amongst most people, is, and myself included. It was like, you had this thought, bear with me right now. You had this thought, you did this. Okay, Eric said, go figure out what I'm good at, what I'm bad at. And okay, I did that. That's obvious. And so now, okay, I got this stuff that I'm bad at. Now I'm going to go hire somebody. And oftentimes that thought process is like, I'm going to hire somebody so they're going to know what to do, right? It's not my strength zone. Frankly, I'm kind of confused. I'm not really even sure what to do. But this person, I'm hiring them because they know what to do. And boom, I'm going to give it to them. And they're going to know what to do. And it's going to get done. That's like the dream that people think of or try to go into this space trying to accomplish. And it can be a miserable, painful failure spot. When you offload your work that you're frustrated with, that you're not super clear on, that you want to get off your plate, and you give it over to a VA, you're thinking you're winning, you're thinking like, okay, I got this. And then the VA gives your work back and it's like not even close.
Yeah.
You're like,
you gotta be super clear.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
You can't just be like letting them guess.
Oh,
right?
God.
They will guess.
They will guess, or they won't do it. It will take way longer. And when you get something back that's like not right or way off the mark, and you're like, wow, okay, now I have to go back, do it over again, then teach them better, right? The training is off, so I got to do the training again, and then go through the experiment again. And it becomes like, for people that aren't committed to the process, that you might try it once or twice, and if you're not nailing that scope of work and not communicating it very well, you're just not setting them up to win. So you just got to, at the end of the day, take ownership for like, okay, the scope of work or how I communicate what they need to do has got to be extremely detailed. And that's universal for any VA, whether they're overseas or in the U.S.
Give them examples. So what I've seen is, if I'm not really sure what I want, but I have like an idea or like an example, and I would take screenshots, and I would, make sure that you're doing videos. There's a free software called Loom, and you can, share your screen and walk through you doing the process, and then have them watch the video and, implement, and even having a step-by-step, like Eric said, like step one, and then I do a screenshot of what it would look like in a standard operating procedure workbook. Every business has it. Can
you see my screen, Stacia?
Oh, there, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So here's a scope of work or SOP example here. Rivas is a VA broker that we use for a lot of our kind of more serious VA type of work, ongoing VA work. So I highly recommend Rivas. We'll put a link in below in the show descriptions, and it's revas.us is their website. Again, I highly recommend them. There's not the be all end all, but they are a really good VA brokerage, and they they teach you how to build scopes of work. So this is an example scope of work of our list scraping process. And so you can see, like Stacia was just saying, there's screenshots, there's arrows, it's step-by-step, really, really clear, really big, bold, all the way through. And it's not skimpy. It's like freaking 28 pages long, right? So this is a really good example of how we build scopes of work. So it makes it, once you go through that process, you kind of create a template, right? So once you have a SOP or scope of work template, then you can start duplicating that pretty quickly. So that's the example of what it looks like. And the better you do that process, the better your result's going to be. That is the takeaway of all takeaways working with VAs, is the better you set them up to win with the scope of work, and the better that is, the better they will win, the faster they'll win, and the more success everybody will have. So that was a big thing. So,
and I want to just mention it might take just a few, it might feel like you're taking a lot of time, you're slowing down, but at the same time, you're going to be so much more productive when you are able to let that go.
Oh my gosh. It's like what you just said, Stacia, is another one of those big principles that people really struggle with, myself included. And for those of you that really know me, you know that I used to race motorcycles in my early 20s at a high level, at a professional level. And one of the things that one of my racing mentors told me that will always sticks with me, that I applied into business, what I'm talking about, is sometimes you just have to slow down to go faster. Okay. That was like really hard for me to understand, especially as a young racer. But I remember, I won't go too long on this side tangent, but I'll never forget. I finished a race, and I was at my car, and I was kind of like, just debriefing with myself after the race. You can imagine taking the helmet off, and you're just kind of, getting through the finish portion of the race, and the winner of the race, somebody that I really looked up to, came by to say hi and kind of checked in on me, and we were just talking about the race that we had just finished, and he gave me this really gut advice right then, because he could tell that I was frustrated and struggling. I wasn't getting the results that I wanted or whatever else, and he just said, "Man, Eric, I can just tell with you, there's not a lack of talent here, but you just really need to learn how to slow down to go faster." And that just punched me in the face. I don't know why that was so impactful in that moment, or maybe it was because it was who said it to me or whatever. But I now reflect on that. Whenever I kind of find myself into a struggle, it's like, okay, slow down to go faster. And so to pull that back to VAs, that's oftentimes what I would do, is like, when I'm trying to outsource something, I'm in this frantic of like, okay, that's got to get done. And I don't have time for it, or I've been ignoring it. I got this anxiety about it. It's got to get done. And as opposed to slow down to go faster. If you were to simply take the time to understand the process really clearly, do the steps, get the right person on board to handle it, do the scope of work with them, and then go in, that's the slowing down to then go poof, way faster. So, just kind of keep that in mind. As an entrepreneur, that really resonates with me. Slow down to go faster every now and again. It's a really strong principle. And so we do that. And when you do that, you're going to have a big difference in the outcome. Okay. So, the other thing that we use with our VAs, and this kind of goes into the big shift that we've seen, is we use VAs for our inside sales associate. So people that take and do our outbound marketing and then do that initial conversation with our clients that are the motivated sellers. So the outreach, hey, how are you doing? Have you ever considered selling your house? And that conversation start. So whether it's text, RVM, we do letters, we'll do cold calling, any of those types of activities, we would have a inside sales associate do that. And we have used and we have scaled using overseas VAs doing this, and we had success with it. And that really allowed us to go into multiple markets and really expand our acquisition game to where it is now. And that was a great process and big part of our learning curve. Now, what we learned through this, though, and I share this with anybody and everybody that I can right now because it's very fresh and it's relevant to now, is that overseas VAs aren't necessarily a great fit for every job. Okay. And it's not just overseas, but kind of that foreign help, right? Not a US based accent, like that type of thing. It can hurt you in some moments. And so, we kind of thought, it's a numbers game. We're just playing volume. Maybe, we might lose 1 out of 100, so what? We're just going to keep going. And we did that for a long time. And we had good results. It wasn't as if our results were bad. But then we started questioning after doing more auditing and seeing conversations that were kind of out of context or the language wasn't quite right. And we were doing a lot of that conversation auditing with our VAs and finding that there were transactions that were slipping through the cracks more than what we wanted. Quite a bit more than what we wanted. It was a problem. And it wasn't like holy cow, catastrophic problem, but it was like the more we looked into it and dissected it, the more we found like, we could do better than this. We are better than this. We can do better than this. And so long story short is that we took that job responsibility away from the overseas VA team. And now we have an internal team that does all of that communication, US based, born and raised. And
they might have a country accent, but that's okay. Okay.
Yeah, of course. Accents aren't the problem necessarily, but it's understanding the culture, the language, how we communicate, to sound like you're from here, that makes a big difference. So we now operate all of our ISA team that used to be overseas is now in-house. It's all they don't work in my home office, but they're in the United States, and they are in the VA category. But I'll tell you that we pay a little bit more for them, which has been great, and our quality has gone up, our conversion rate has gone up, our appointment set ratio has gone up. Everything is on the improvement trend now that we have our in-house ISA team. And so that's just kind of a reflection of like, hey, there's a lot of things that can go over to overseas VAs, and it's great, but not necessarily everything. So have that critical thought and know what you're trying to outsource for what purpose. And then kind of reverse engineer into that answer there. And there's a lot of really good resources to help you answer these types of questions. So if this conversation made sense to you, if you like this, if you want to take a deeper dive into it, you always can with us. We are always here to help. So you can simply raise your hand, leave a comment, and schedule a call, a strategy session with me, and we can do a deep dive into your business, see if we can do anything to help you get to a different result stage, get better results, hit your goals. And there's a lot of different ways we can go about that. So, but VAs is a really, really great way that we help our clients implement to scale.
Yeah, I want to recommend one of my favorite books before we close it out here called Rework. So if anyone has read or hasn't read that book, it's a very good book when you're talking about building teams virtually, less meetings. And I was just thinking about that. I was like, how much more productive I am not having water cooler talk. I just have a bunch of Zoom meetings.
As nerdy as you and I are joking, Stacia, because we know it's true. We get it. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite books when it comes to like, just being more productive, having, you're really just a meeting when you really have to have meetings, and structure. So there's a lot more to building a team. There's a lot more that goes into managing a team virtually. So make sure to reach out. There will be links in the description below this video, and make sure to join the group if you're not already watching this video in the group. You're watching over on YouTube. Make sure to join our group as well too, because there's a lot more trainings that we're going to have during the week and a lot more networking that happens here in the group. So make sure to introduce yourself if you're new as well too, and we'll see you on the next video.
Yeah. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. My son's been telling me to say this the whole time.
Hit the subscribe button.
All right, guys. Love it.
Bye. Oh, it's called Rework. Let me write that in the comments too.
Rework. Awesome. Thank you.
Someone just asked. Okay.